Ready, hunt! He's taking advantage of some downtime to count down the 15 best and worst games of the Bob Stoops era. And here to talk about it is our new OU football writer, Jason Kersey. I'm Mike Sherman, and this is OU Football with Jason Kersey. Jason, why did you decide to do such a thing?
Well, I was doing a little research for the new beat, and I was looking at the Texas Tech game last year, and I thought, surely this has to be one of Bob Stoops' worst losses. And then I just went back through the schedules and started looking, and I thought this would be a fun way to pass the time through the summer to give readers something to kind of whet their appetite. And there happened to be 15 weeks between when I decided to do it and the season opener, and so it just worked out.
13 seasons of Bob Stoops at OU, and those 15 wins really only account for about 10% of his victories. Anything among his biggest wins that you've encountered so far that are in common or surprising, or what have you learned from the wins?
Well, I tried to base it on what the game meant, the impact of it. So bowl games, I think, get a preference, especially the big bowl games. What the game meant in terms of historical context. Beating Texas would obviously increase on the list. And then just surprising games where they came out and played much better than maybe people anticipated. That's why I picked Iowa State. And my number 11 one that was just last week was Iowa State from 2002. Iowa State obviously isn't a big-name team, but Seneca Wallace came into that game as the Heisman frontrunner. They were the nation's darling, and OU beat them 49-3, and Seneca Wallace was 1 of 12 at halftime. So I tried to just take all those things into consideration, and that's kind of how I came up with that list.
Now, when you come down to the losses, he's got 34 losses in 13 seasons. So, you're basically accounting for almost half of his losses.
Yeah.
Anything that pops out to you among the losses?
Well, that's another thing where I just looked for games where they weren't expected to lose, or maybe even if it was a tight game where maybe people thought they could lose, they lost way worse than they were supposed to lose. I don't want to give anything away because there's still 10 more games to go, but that's sort of the thing I looked for. It was the same sort of criteria: historical context, what the game meant in terms of that season, and in terms of history.
Number 10 comes up this weekend. Jason, I'm going to ask you for a hint about the number 10 best win and number 10 worst loss.
The number 10, a hint, without giving it away, let's just say that the win was a big comeback that was on the road, and the number 10 loss, you're just going to have to read it.
Thanks, Jason. That's all for this edition of OU Football with Jason Kersey, but you can stay with the best coverage team every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman. Ready, hunt!